And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. That's right. I said welcome back because I know you were just here listening to something else and you came back for more because you loved it so much. Brilliant move because we have a lot more for you. Why do we have so much for you? Because this is the podcast that's about podcasters, it's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. And our guest today, wait for it, is a podcaster, amongst a lot of other things, which I'm going to let him tell you all about. Folks, this is the place where we come together to raise each other up, and this is the place where the rising tide truly raises all ships. So let's get sailing and bring in our guest today. I mean, I could sit here and read this resume for an hour and a half, but I'm just going to give you a couple of highlights. Current spy or combat spy turned podcast host. 70 months of service, 1,000 combat patrols. I mean, wow. Now, here we go. 2,000 episodes as a podcaster, as the host of the hit show Break It Down Show. Wow. Huh? I mean, really? Come on.
Yeah.
All right, folks, put your hands together and let's bring in our guest today, Pete Turner. Pete, how you doing, man?
Man, that's an intro. We were just talking off, Mike. When you hear about the accomplishments, and you've been at it for a while, and all of a sudden you realize, geez, that's me. I've done this thing. And look, anybody who's podcasted for one episode knows how hard one is, let alone 2,000. I did two live ones earlier today on my own show,
Mhm.
and it never ceases to amaze me. One, how much my podcast has changed my life. And two, just the path now. Like when we started, John and I, we we had no idea what we were getting into. We were pretty crafty with booking people, and we had a great network, and we came out of the boat hard. But also, people didn't even know what a podcast was. And now it's like, what kind of a podcast? Not what's a podcast. So
Right.
it's an amazing journey, and I'm super glad to share it with you today, and hopefully give some folks some different perspective because I've done all of it, tried everything, and and I think I can take some of the pressure off, but also make it as hard as anything they've ever done when we talk about it. So I'm excited to hear from you what your questions are and see what your audience thinks.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that. Let me just clarify too. It's been more than 10 years that you've been doing this, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
wow.
yeah. It's crazy. Yeah,
I mean, you're
you
one of
think
the
about
OGs of
what
this industry, man.
I know, right? And it's true. Like if you look at Podcast Mountain, I'm way up at the tippity top of it, and yet no one's ever heard of me. And so you can, and this is true in so many things, that you can be the absolute pinnacle or at the pinnacle or high enough that anybody be like, oh my God, and then still be largely anonymous, whether you're the greatest hand surgeon in the world. Or raise your hand if you know who the greatest hands. I don't.
Good point.
There's so many things that are incredible that you can do and we get awfully dismissive of folks who've done incredible things. And so just general think about like at 500 episodes, 200 episodes, you're already one of the greatest, most successful shows ever.
Yeah,
Already at 200. It's just
that's
hard to do.
yeah, it really is. You're right. And I mean, when you get into the rare air of the thousands, I mean, you and I were going back and forth. Was it 1,300? Was it 1,500? And then you were like, no, it's 2,000. And I'm like, oh, of
Yeah.
course it's 2,000.
And I kind of don't count anymore. Actually, not count. I do not count anymore. I figure 2000 is big enough. Why am I trying so hard? So
Wow.
yeah, I don't know what the number is. I would have to go back. I could probably spend a few hours figuring it out, but why? I mean, like, isn't 2000 a good enough bona fides for, hey, Pete knows how to podcast?
Wow. Well, I mean, yeah, for sure. I think that your credibility is established, brother. I think you're good to go.
Yeah,
At
thanks, man.
2,000 episodes,
Yeah,
nobody's questioning anymore. Let me talk a little bit about just kind of like your story, if that's okay.
yeah, please.
You're a former, looks like you were in the Army,
Mhm.
it says combat spy. What exactly did you do in the Army?
Yeah,
Counterintelligence.
in my field, I was a counterintelligence agent, and it is a crowded field with a lot of multi-discipline type things. So I ended up being, and this is not designed, this is not normal for anybody else, but I ended up being a very specific, rather than being a generalist who did one of 100 and something jobs, I primarily did one job. Now, I'm familiar with and have done many of the disciplines in counterintelligence, but what I did, there wasn't really a name for. And so I am basically like we would call me back in the old days, they would call me a muddy boot collector. I'm the guy that goes on the ground, leaves the army post or the allied post, depending on where you're at and what you're doing. And then I go interact with the locals and I'm trying to find things out. And ultimately, there's four things that I'm trying to do. help the commander win more and lose less, help the enemy lose more and win less. And sometimes one piece of information wraps all four of those things together. That's the fastest way I can explain it. But what it really is it's a crazy job where you're part consultant, you're part news reporter, you're part salesman, and you go out and it's hyper dangerous to do. But most of the time, if I'm doing my job the way I do it in these dangerous areas, you'll think that I'm goofing around just having conversations all day, which is what I'm doing, but I'm not goofing around. There's a design in everything I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to become adept at it. You can do it without knowing what you're doing. Very hard to prep for what you're going to do too. So you have to do on the ground reps. And I'm one of the most seasoned collectors of my type that there is. And nobody's going to be, once you get to a certain point, you're a black belt. That's it. It's all that matters. And so there are other black belts out there for sure. Right. But the standard person you'll meet will never be more choppy in field collection than I am. Even if they've done more patrols, um, we're both peers in terms of greatness, if that makes sense.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Now you were in the service for a long time. It looks like. I mean, with 70 months and 1,000 combat patrols,
Yeah.
you did this for a long. Did you go in there like right out of high school, or did you go to college first, then do this, or what was your path in there?
Yeah, I went to college and graduated college first and had no idea I was going to join the army. This sort of happened because the economy wasn't great when I graduated. And let me clarify one thing too. 70 months in combat zones. So the rest of my military time was back home or not in the military, whatever it was. And I probably should specify this too. So I was in the military three different ways. I was in the military sworn in, I'm a soldier. And then I was working on the contract side, satisfying some need, but it's an intel need for the company through a contract. And then I was in the Department of the Army, again, sworn in. Hi, I'm Pete. And so I was like with and in and for is kind of the way I say it. And when you do that, you get to do what I did and kind of stay at a level of access to the ground. Because if you stay in the army, you promote up and away from the mission, and you lose the ability to reliably get out and go on the ground. And so this is why like a lot more of my peers are generalists because they promote and they do staff things and all that. And I'm the last guy you want behind a desk. I certainly have the skills to do it, but I don't have and I didn't then have the personal makeup to do it. I um, I've I just don't perform well if my main job is sitting behind a desk and I'm desperate to get off the camp. And that just doesn't do when you're trying to become the next rank up. Like, hey, all Pete wants to do is go out. But the reason why I want to go out is because again, like use the black belt analogy. Everybody's out kung fu fighting, and you got me sitting here. I should at least be training folks how to kung fu fight. No, you want me building PowerPoint slides? All right, and so my career just kind of instead of going up in a normal fashion, it just stayed parallel and gave me incredible experience on the ground.
I mean, the it's really interesting to me because counterintelligence in the army for all that time, that's not usually something that is an answer on a quiz in elementary school. What do you want to do when you grow up? You know what I mean? There's policeman, there's fireman, there's teacher. Counterintelligence for
Yeah.
70 combat missions is not usually, option D. So, what made you want to go into that field, and how were you qualified to do that? What'd you have to go through to do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I didn't know I was going to join the army until about a month before I did, and that was all necessitated because I graduated college. I tried to get a job, primarily in TV and radio, but I couldn't find a real job doing anything. And I didn't want to just go out, get really good at playing softball, which is pretty good, and then get a DUI and have that be my life. Like I needed to go do something else, and I sort of just said, all right, this is it. Because I was working at Costco, right? And I'd been hired as a seasonal guy for Christmas and everything. And they brought me back in January and they said, hey, we'd love to have you stay, and everything else. And maybe they cared about me. Maybe I was just another dude to go out and do stuff. But for sure, at some point I would have got promoted up and maybe my whole life would have been Costco, which for me specifically then, that part of my life was like, that's not why I went to college. You know, and nobody was going to look at me and say, "Well, that's corporate material," because I was raw, I was wild. I like girls, I like softball, I like going out and having fun. So I wasn't anybody preparing to become a corporate monster and like, oh, I'm going to compete super hard. So I don't blame them for that. But I was pushing shopping carts in the rain one day after a lot of failure, and I'd really not failed at anything in life at that point. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't find a job. I've had all these different opportunities. I've used my connections, my networks. I just could not break into TV, especially in a sportscasting. So I'm like, I got to do something. And I'd had a conversation, the exact same conversation with another dude who also was like me, had a lot of skills, had a lot of talent. He's like, I think I might go join the army and become a spy. And I went, oh, that's interesting. I'd never considered that, but now I have to consider new things. And so I switched to shopping
Wow.
carts in the rain, and I thought, no, I'm going to have to do this, because I'd already gone through the steps and everything. And I was like, guys, this is it. I'm changing my direction. I'm pivoting, and I'm going to become this thing. So when I became a counterintelligence, I didn't even know what it was. My recruiter didn't know what it was. And here's the thing about my recruiter. I went to the different offices and briefly talked to everybody. And the army guy was the guy that I resonated with. So I sort of stuck with him. And he didn't do anything special. And when I said, hey, I need some time to think about this, right? Like we'd done all the work, and we found the job code for counterintelligence and all that stuff. And he's like, do what you want to do? And I'm like, yeah, don't call me, don't bug me, don't follow up. If I want to do this, I'll get back in touch with you. I'm 23 years old when this is all happening. I'm 24. I'm 24 years old when this is all happening. And so he's like, yeah, whatever, man. I don't care. Like, I'm almost done being a recruiter. So when my recruiter puts me into the army, I'm the last guy that I believe this is true still. I'm the last guy he put in the army. He had his cardboard box. He was walking out of his office. He's like, I'm going to drive you over there, and, this is going to be it. So he didn't bug me. If he would have bugged me once, I would have turned and ran and said, nope, not doing it, just to spite him for not following my directions. But he didn't care. He handled it perfectly and stood up for me and kept me in this box because the army tried to move me around to something else. And he's like, no, 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 I've never put anybody into this job. Look, I'm not the brightest guy in the world, but I'm smart. And so when I passed the test, he's like, highest scores I've had since I've been a recruiter. You can have any job in the army. And I'm like, well, what do you think? And he's like, medical or intel, one of the two, right? And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me. I wouldn't want to take anything else. So that's sort of the long answer of I ended up there because my recruiter did a great job. He listened to me and put me in a spot, unbeknownst to him, that was perfect for me. It was special enough that I was challenged by it. It was outside enough that I wasn't bored by being inside. It was inside enough that I got to get away from being, it was just a good blend of things. Kind of like Lloyd Dobber from Say Anything. I don't want to sell things that are made. I don't want to make things that are sold, kind of thing. And counterintelligence just was a great blend
Wow.
of the things that, but anybody who knows who Lloyd Dobber is. But yeah, that's how I got there, was just through circumstance, some good counsel, which is pretty rare in my life, and I took it. Also pretty rare in my life.
We're just dating ourselves, laughing at Lloyd Dobber. That's all. It's standing out in the rain, holding up the radio. So we got it.
Yes.
We got the reference.
Yeah.
So did you? I mean, I'm assuming with the job that you had to do, you had to speak multiple languages and stuff in order to talk to the locals and get the
Yeah.
intel. Did you already speak those languages, or did you learn those when you went into the army?
Yeah, I didn't learn a language in the army. I have some capability in a lot of languages, but none of them, I'm not conversant in any of them. But what I am great at is working with an interpreter, because I learned how to do
Uh,
that early on in the army. I deployed to Bosnia. We had a Navy guy who was a Bosniak by birth. And so I learned through him because he was American as anybody else, right? He's a Navy guy. And I learned through him how to actually work an interpreter. And it wasn't what the books said. And it was all focused on trust and understanding how powerful they were as an asset, culturally, language wise. And so if I allowed him to help me do my job, I could do my job better.
hmm.
And that requires a lot of trust. But the fact is he and I and my partner, who also was the agent of, like, every day we took turns being the agent, right? So every other day was my turn, his turn. So the two of us worked with this interpreter nonstop, and we just, worked like dogs. And I just got really, really good at asking questions and really, really good at working with interpreters, so that instead of being bound by a language, I was free to do anything in any country. And that's a rare thing in my field, is to have an actual mastery of that. That is another black belt that I have, and I can outperform most of my peers because I've just done it more. I've done it better. I know what right looks
Yeah.
like. And so when I see bad, I'm like, oh boy, we've got to work on your interpreter skills. And it's not a thing that folks talk about very commonly, but and this is the big lesson here is And I've had a lot of veterans on my show, SEALs, Green Berets, all kinds of stuff like that. And I'll say to them, "Have you had more conversations in combat zones or fired bullets?" And they're like, "Sure." But one guy different, but everybody else is like, "Sure." Way more conversations. I'm like, "Where'd you spend the bulk of your training?" They're like, "Almost exclusively on the lethal side."
Yeah.
So it's this thing that we do all the time, and we don't treat it like it's essential to the mission. And I did, and I was able to be successful because of that.
Wow. Now you've had a lot of really crazy big name guests and stuff like that on your podcast. Have you made connections like that because of connections you made when you were doing counterintelligence? Did this happen after that? I'm just kind of curious, how that all worked for you.
Yeah, it's because I treat podcasting like I do. It's a spy skill, and it's part salesman, it's part news reporter. All these things are what we do, at least in the way we do this job, you and I. So I meet people because one, and this is one of the greatest things. Like the rules are simple. If you want to book people, ask them. That's it,
Right. There you go.
and either they'll say yes or no, and then you do the next thing. And sometimes you ask them again. Sometimes you find a different set of words and you ask better. But I get my mind blown. Just today, I had my mind blown by two different guys, and I got both of those guys because I asked them, and they just said yes. And so that's a very counterintelligence thing to do. You go out and you talk to folks, and then you know what you do after the show's over? You say, "Hey, who else should I have?" And then they're like, "Oh yeah, you know what? You'd love Bob." And then all of a sudden you're talking to Bob, and you're like, "I have no idea."
Right.
And when you do that as much as I have, the craziest situations happen. Where at one point I was interviewing a guy, and this guy was a Reagan staffer, the highest level, like super, like in the Oval Office all the time. And I said, "You know what? There's a guy just like you from DC. He's worked with all these administrations. Man, you'd love him. And the guy I'm talking to is a Republican, and the guy I'm talking about is a Democrat. I'm like, you guys are, Democrat, Republican, but who cares about that? You guys both have gotten some things done. It would be great to have him on the show." And the guy's like, "Tell me more about who he is." And so I described him more, and he's like, "What's that guy's name?" And I said, "His name's Robert Hunter." And he's like, "That guy lives across the street from me." And those guys became friends because they met on my show. Even though they were neighbors, they would go on walks and everything else. And so you have these two dudes who were just hyper connected in DC, people that other administrations call upon to help them figure things out. And now, not only are they on my show, but they're friends. And they'll stop me every now and then, "Pete, do you realize what you did?" And I'm just, oh my God. But that's exactly what spies do. That's exactly, at least in the way I spy. You get people, you connect them, they connect you, they send you to somebody else, and all of a sudden you're part of this network that I look around and I'm like, how in the world did I get at this table? And that's happened, Rory, that's happened so many times to me where I just
Wow.
cannot believe. And here's the thing. I am open about being a spy. And I'm open about the fact that I've met all these incredible people, and not just because of the show. And I'll talk to people and they're like, "Yeah, I don't believe you. There's no way that's true." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I don't believe it either, but it really happened." And so I can say, like, I know all kinds of billionaires and no one will believe me, because when I say I'm a spy, they're like, "Yeah, I don't believe you about that either. And so it's just the craziest thing where these scenarios happen and I can't believe I'm doing it sometimes.
Wow. One of the things that podcasters are always dealing with is credibility, in terms of getting people on the show and being taken seriously and that kind of thing. When you started off, I'm guessing that your military career background gave you a certain amount of credibility to get some people on the show.
Sure.
Okay. So now that you're 2,000 episodes in and you're one of the top guys in all of podcasting, do you find now that it's the military background that still gets people on the show, or is it the credibility of being one of the top podcasters around that gets you,
Yeah.
people on the show?
Nobody cares about me and who I am. That's just not a thing. It doesn't matter. What matters is the way I ask. And it used to be that I would include the veteran thing in there,
Mhm.
but I've taken it out because, and I've messed with my ask over and over again. But basically, I do as short as I can. And I basically just say, "Hey, I want to invite you on the show." Like almost word for word. "I want to invite you on I saw your work and I'm excited about it and I would love to talk to you. I want to invite you on my show. Here's and then I write the word bona fides because that's a part of a spy thing. You've got to have your bona fides. And I'll say, in this case, I'll say 10 plus years, 2,000 plus episodes. I know how to produce shows. And then I say, if you do me the honor of being my guest, and I think these are the magic words for me, then I need about an hour. I'm glad to come to you if it makes sense for us to get together face to face, which is my preference, or we can do this on the web. Either way, I want to make sure it's easy on you, and I'll work around your schedule. And then at the end, I say, if nothing else, just from all of us out here in the big world, thanks for what you're doing. And I'll check what they're doing, like their acting, your music, your leadership, whatever it is. You know, not every people don't get to hear this every day. So I want to be someone that says to you legitimately, thank you. And then sign off. Pete. That's basically what I write. And that gets people to pay attention, which is the whole thing. And I'm always looking for affect, not effect. So I can write 100 invites, but if I'm not affective, if I don't get them to emotionally respond to my letter, well, then I'm writing a lot of letters with that response. And
Yeah.
so I'm genuine when I say these things. Even if I write these words, I'm personalizing. I don't send out a form. I write every email, even if the words are almost the same for everybody. I genuinely mean that. And it comes across because when they talk to me, they're like, Pete, this is great. I've had a great time. You really are passionate about what I'm doing, and I love that. And so that I think is a difference maker when it comes to my bona fides is look, when it was 300 episodes or 50 episodes, I could write down 50 episodes because that's still mind-blowing to people. But it's less about, hey, I'm a veteran and I see that you're a veteran supporting person. This would mean a lot to me. Like I've written that kind of thing before, but it's more important that you just, give the bona fides of the show and say, this is what my show is. And we've had a lot of incredible people. Now, if it's someone big, I might add a section where I say, here are some of the guests that you might recognize, peers.
Mm.
And then if I put peers and I put down whether I say names or what they are. Like if I say peers and the first person I say is Nobel Peace Prize winner, they're like, wait a second, I'm peers of the Nobel Peace Prize winner? And so, because my musicians have, and I used to write this all the time too, my musicians have sold over 1.7 billion records. So if you're a musician, you'd be like, yeah, okay, I'll join Susie Quattro, and Susie Quattro, for anybody who doesn't know, she had a huge, she's an American chick and is one of the most iconic lady rockers around. And she's in her 70s now, but she she's sold like almost 100 million albums primarily in England. She's a huge, huge rock star. But
Wow.
it's amazing, right? And
Yeah,
people
that's
forget
something.
about her. It's just, yeah, it's amazing. Anyhow, sorry, I got distracted by Susie Quattro because she's awesome.
I mean, you have such star power in your show, it's even distracting you. So I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah, yeah,
works
yeah.
out. It's a good first world problem to have, brother. I appreciate it.
hmm
The as you've built the show up, tell everybody what. Tell me, I'm sorry, excuse me. Tell everybody what the show's about. And who you bring on and why.
This is a good question because when I tell people who are trying to help me or assess my show and everything, this is where I get a lot of critique. Because someone's always going to tell you what your show is supposed to be about or that you haven't thought about it enough. And so here I am. I've thought about it enough. My show, and this is from the beginning, interesting people doing fascinating things. My show is about life. That's what I illustrate. And that's it. I mean, if it's interesting to me, then I'm going to put it on the air and I'm going to have that person and have a conversation. And it's my job to make it interesting. They're going to be interesting. It's my job to make sure everything else falls on me. I'm responsible for everything. And so that's how I handle it. And those are the words that I say. It's interesting people doing fascinating things. And it still works to this day. Now, I'll have people say, oh, that's not really clear enough about what you're doing. I'm like, all right, I can say it's Rogan-esque. You don't never ever know you're going to get, but it's
Right.
always going to be cool. But but who cares? Look what I've done. It's like, okay, here's the thing I say, and this is really important for podcast folks to understand. When someone's critical of what you built, okay, fine, they can say that. But at some point, you've built it. No one knows the Turkish word for victory, right? Nobody knows it. It's ziffer, right? And maybe I'm saying it wrong with the accent, but everybody knows the Nike word for victory. I mean, the Greek word for victory, Nike, because Nike turned itself into a brand. And so, it just is something because it is something. And it's become something to a Nickelodeon is no longer a Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon's a network on TV, right? And so when they first named their network, sure, maybe it was named after the device that you put a nickel in, but it became something else. So whatever you're going to call yourself, whatever your catchphrases and that kind of thing. It only matters if you feel comfortable saying it and it matches what you want to do. And by the way, change your mind, change your mission. Don't matter. Just change it because everybody gets so precious about, oh, look how clever my show name is. Yeah, I don't care if you don't put out episodes. You didn't make your name into anything. You have to produce.
Right.
Have to. Production, 10 times more important than perfection. I'm not saying be sloppy, but I'm saying go do it. And if you don't, then it doesn't matter what your name is. And so it doesn't matter what your catchphrase is. You have to go out and perform.
Love it. I love that advice too. If it's not fitting you, just change it.
Yeah,
Uh, one of the things I talk about a lot here is people get so bogged down in in these imaginary rules that we
yeah,
have as podcasters. Well, that's the way it's done. According to who?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Says who about what? And so people are always trying to like, well, this is the right way to do it, or this is the proper thing. There's no book of etiquette. I mean, this is still the wild, wild west out here. We're making up our own rules as we go. So I'm with you 100%. I love that you said that. Now, when you started your show, was your show that way? Interesting people doing interesting things,
Yeah,
or
pretty
did it
much from the
just
start.
okay? So it's always been that way, but now it's
Yeah.
okay because you're over 2,000 episodes.
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
No one has questioned that. And here's the thing is, you know, it's in my profile on X, like Pete's a podcast producer. He runs a podcast, right? It's because that's what you do with your bio. And someone will come along and be like, "Ooh, I'm a podcaster." And I'm like, yeah, listen, if you knew how ridiculous it is to make fun of the thing that has changed my life and made my life better, and I've met all these people, I've been on all these crazy adventures, like it's so patently ridiculous. I don't even like care if they say it because anybody who's paid attention to my show knows what my show is, and they know that it's great. And even if it's not their cup of tea, they're like, Pete works hard. Pete gets incredible people. My friends will say, "Man, I listened to the show the other day," and I'll find out that they met 5 years ago, and that's fine because the show isn't for everybody, and not every episode is for everybody. But but that this is the thing about you can't have your ego attached to the success of your show too much because you just don't you can't control the success of what your show is. You have to be able to define success for yourself. This is where your no rules thing comes in. My show, I make some money, right? But it's not enough to brag about or even mention because it ain't worth it for the money. But the opportunities that I get, the times when I'm sitting in that room going, I can't believe I'm sitting in here talking about this stuff with all these billionaires, right? And now they look at me and go, well, what do you think, Pete? And I'm like, you want me to tell you what I think? Oh my God. So the opportunities that my show creates, what it produces for me, and we're separate entities now. My show is bigger than me in a lot of ways. It's muscly. It's like, wow, 2,000 episodes. And then I'm just Pete. I'm just a regular dude. So if I want to, I can lean on the power of my show, or I can just be myself. And like, when I look, I'm all glad to talk about the Break It Down show with you and promote it and everything, but I don't care about that. It's got its own power, it's got its own mission, and we're separate entities. So we're talking about me and how I see these things. And so there's definitely a line between the two of us, the show and myself. But I guess the thing is when you try to do these things and you're trying to decide what the rules are, I've had to discover what's valuable and how do I create value for you, someone who's hosting me on their show. How do I create value for the guest on my show? And how do I create value for the audience? So much so that they'll say, Pete, the next time I get a $5,000 check won't be the first time, right? I don't make a lot of money with the show, but I get a lot of opportunities and I get to talk to incredible people. And quite often, something positive, financial or experiential, will happen from that. And for me, there's so much value in that. I keep doing it, obviously. So that's sort of like there are no rules. There are no set ways to do this. There's a lot of ways people will tell you how they might do it, but I've been around long enough that a lot of those folks don't have shows anymore, and they seemed very into it and very successful. And there's a lot of very successful podcasters that have done it and have stuck with it. But I don't want to fill a funnel. I don't want to generate leads. And these are things I've known about myself when I tried all this stuff. So if you're not sure what your show is, or you're sure and it doesn't act in a way that makes you want to get up every day and do it, change your show or don't do a show. To be the next person that quits doing a podcast, hey, that's no big deal. It's not for everybody, and maybe it's for you 2 years from now, but not now. Don't put limits on what your show can be. Don't put limits on yourself, but also don't be afraid to change and say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go start an ice cream cone truck because podcasting sucks. Because that's fine. Honestly, if you want to like start a way to make money, go get a legitimately awesome, well-regarded franchise and spend your time paying for that because the path to money is much more reliable. But if you want to meet all the people in your life that will blow your mind away, and you can do this, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, whatever it's going to be, then you should do podcasting because you will absolutely blow your mind all the time.
Nice. Nice. I,
Yeah.
I mean, I can hear all this scribbling going on because all these podcasters who are listening to this show are taking notes
Yeah.
furiously on everything that you're
Yeah.
saying. And so,
Good.
they're like, wait, what did he say? And what was that? And they're just writing stuff down right now. So, you're just literally pumping value right out, which is
Trying to.
fantastic. You mentioned that podcasting changed your life.
Yeah.
And I mean, is that strictly because of all the people that you got to know, or was there more to that particular comment you made?
I think there has to be more to it than that. I mean, I live in Southern California. I realized that I had a chance of doing something big. It ended up being not anything what I thought it would be, but I'm like, I got to get down south because I live in California, and this is where the big leagues is for all the entertainment stuff. So I had to get down here. And I've pushed my show towards the entertainment side, and they said, that's probably too much entertainment for me. And these sound like dramatic moves. It's just kind of an ebb and flow, right? I do a lot of authors. Authors for me are great. I love them. And I get to talk to just incredible people. A lot of academics have been on my show. I talk about a lot of social issues. And so by being down in Southern California, I'm not limited to anything. People always come through here. There's a lot of people who are here already, but it's just a great spot to be. So that value came to me because of the show. The business people I get to meet, the ability to help them. One of my favorite bits of advice is to not do a podcast, right? And then charge them for it. Like, yeah, I'll come in and tell you everything you want to know. Here's the invoice. But you told me not to do a podcast. I'm like, I saved you a couple $1,000s. It's like, so is what you're paying for, right? And that sounds ridiculous, but having the right advice, not the right advice for me to make money, but the right advice for that person. You guys want to do something, but here's what the work is. And they're like, oh, that actually sounds kind of hard. I'm like, it is. Probably shouldn't do it. So when I do work with somebody, it's because they've passed my test of, 'cause I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to pour my passion into something and have them not really be into it. And so I'll say to someone, like, let's say you came to me, you're like, hey, I want to podcast and, lift up my brand. And I'll ask you the hard questions. Do you have time? Do you have money? First two questions. No, I'm too busy to do this. Well, then don't do it. Don't do it. And that's the same for anybody. Like if you don't have time, well, then you have to have money. And if you don't have money to buy someone else's time, then you should do something else. Go make some money or whatever it is.
Right.
Look, there is a world where anybody can go out and drive Uber enough to make $100 a day. And all of a sudden you realize that you can make $100,000 if you're just willing to work 1,000 days, and also you have $100,000. So you can spend 4 years or whatever, however many days that is to get there. Let's say it takes you 5 years because you take days off. Okay, great. But if you stack up $100,000 in 5 years, you can open up any kind of franchise you want because you got a pile of cash.
Sure.
And so you could do that or be 5 years into doing a podcast and you really find out you're only 13 episodes in, because you just can't get your show going, right? So it's like, what are you willing to do? Where's your passion going to be? And the example I always use is this. If you came to me and said, Pete, I want to go and get in the pool and swim 400 meters of butterfly, I'm like, "Ooh, hold on. I can swim and I can help you get going, but I'm not even the guy that's going to teach you butterfly and how to do it. And by the way, nobody swims that far in butterfly. It's exhausting. Like why not do side stroke for 1,000 yards and then get out and just be healthier, because you reliably do that. You can't just jump in the pool and swim butterfly for that long. Are you crazy? But when people don't hear that advice, like podcasting is swimming the butterfly. This, like it takes what, 10 hours per episode? At least when you first get started. Maybe you develop skills and you can do it faster, but it's hours and hours and hours of work every time you do an episode. And that's not going to change. So if you don't have time and you don't have money, you should figure out what's valuable to you. And if it's podcasting is a dream, like how like VW buses are kind of dreamy. You see them and you're like, wow, I'd love to drive in that thing. But you don't, right? Or
Right.
you go to REI and you're like, I'd buy everything in this store. It's a great life, right? They are great at selling the dream. Podcasts are dreamy. And there's all kinds of things in our lives that we see that are like that, where we buy the workout machine and it becomes a clothes rack, right? It's dreamy because you can see your physique. You're like, yeah, podcasting is just like that.
Nice. I've never heard that expressed that way. Podcasting is like selling the dream, and that's wow. I mean, seriously, compared it to exercise equipment, that's so spot on. Just never heard it before. Wow. All right. Excellent. Let me ask you about the show. Only you brought up,
Yeah.
making money on it.
Yeah.
Granted, far too many people get into this thinking they're going to make money, and
Right.
absolutely the wrong thing to do. But after a while, there are opportunities to make money
Sure.
and stuff. And you had mentioned that how have you monetized the podcast? What's been successful for you, if you don't mind me asking?
No, yeah, of course. So one of the things that I do is just planting seeds. So like let's say that you talk to me and you realize, oh, I realize that you need to know a person that I know. And I'll connect you guys together. And maybe you go off and do an adventure and it turns you guys into some money, you know. And I don't know, 2 years down the road, you're like, I gotta pay Pete some money. This is incredible. I can't believe I had this conversation with this person. I can't believe we went on this adventure together and turned out that we made a bunch of money doing it. So all of a sudden a check will show up and I'll be like, hey, Rory, you sent me a check today. What the hell's this for? And you're like, listen, man, come on. You know what you did for me. You know what we've been doing these last couple of years. It's been great. Thanks, man. Here's a couple $100. Here's $1,000, whatever it is, right? So that happens. And that happens often enough that I'm mentioning it to you guys. It's not every day. I don't expect it, but this thing happens. Or someone will say, Pete, I need you to come host this thing. I know you can do it because you host your show all the time. And I'll say, great. And I don't expect to get paid. And at the end, they're like, what do you want to charge me? And I'm like, I don't know. What's your budget? And they'll say, how about $700? And I'm like, how about 1,000? And they're like, all right, I'll give you $1,000. And so all of a sudden I got paid to host something, right? Because I know how to run a program. I know how to ask the right questions. I know how to Rory, I can become invisible, right? I can go up there and just be the guy, MC the thing and get out of the way and let everybody else shine. That's worth money, right? And so I'm describing things. You're like, wait, what? Pete, I had a guy pitch me and he's like, I'd like you to host things. It's not going to be all the time, but maybe once a year. I have, who's doing the job right now is Leonard Maltin, the film critic, right? But he's aging out. And so when he
Oh,
can't do it, I'm the guy they call. What?
wow.
I'm replacing Leonard Maltin? Okay, I'll do that. And so there's all kinds of things like that. But also, I've got audience members that see what I'm doing. And I sort of learned this from one of my friends. And he went out and got an MBA and got this high level job in the medical field and everything. And he's like, hey, man, don't you ever quit. I know it's hard. I know the money's not there, but don't you ever quit. We all want to be you. And I'm like, well, some money would help. And they're like, we all have money. We all have money for you, Pete. You just got to figure out how to ask for it. I'm going to pay. And so he pays me every month. And he has for years now. He pays me every month, a little bit of money. But he's like, I see it. I see what you're doing. I don't have to bug him about it. I've got other friends that are like, you're never going to buy a meal when you see me. We're just going to sit down and have a great conversation. And so I don't have to feel bad about that compensation because these guys have the money. They don't have the time. And they don't feel comfortable necessarily putting money in my pocket each month, but they want to exchange some kind of value. And this includes like, Pete, are you free this? I have a lot of freedom. Are you free this week? Or do you? My buddy, a lifelong friend, said, hey, my kid goes to Clemson now. He just dropped him off this week. He's dropping him off right now. They're still there in Clemson. He's like, do you want to go back to a game with me? And I'm like, man, And he's like, we actually don't even say any of these words, right? Because we've already said them all. He'll pay for the whole thing. He's a doctor. He can afford it, right? But what he wants is someone that can come along. I'm someone that can come along. And so that may not seem like value. But all of a sudden now I'm going out and I'm in the Carolinas doing whatever I want to do. Maybe I do a show, maybe I meet up with somebody I know or whatever it's going to be. But there's value in that, right? So there's all kinds of things that you would never write out in your mission. Like, oh, then I'm going to be taking flights. A friend of mine, all paid, expenses paid, and we went to Tahiti together you know, because he's like, I just want to go with someone who can go and who's fun. And I'm fun. I'm entertaining. I've got stories. And so all of these things go into that. I didn't know that that was part of what podcasting was. So sure, I get money each month from people that, do a subscription thing, but I don't do anything for them. This is just them saying, here's our support. I'm going to give you $20 a month, $100 a month, $10 a month, whatever it is, right? And there's a little packet of money there that I get each month. And that's nice. The other thing is I'll do consulting for people and I'll produce for them. So either I'll help them figure out what to do and how to do it, or I'll do it for them. And so there's some of that, but I don't want too much of that work because that begins to chew into my time. And
Mhm.
I've got other projects I want to work on. So I'm grateful for the clients that I have, and I love to work hard for them and be available as much as possible. But also, they all understand that I have my own things to do. And so if I take on even maybe one more client, it's like, oh gosh, can I deliver like I want to? Probably not. And so That for me is limited. And so it might seem like, oh, you can work for a bunch of people. And that's not going to work for me because I need to be in the mix doing the things that I do. And because of all of this is a long way of saying a lot of crazy things happen and I get money stuffed into my pockets. Not enough, but enough. Um, I've become a movie producer. What? How did that happen? But I know so many people in the movies now, and I know people that have books that are incredible, and they don't have the contacts to get a real movie made. And so I've become the person who fits that little void. And so I'll have someone on with an incredible book. I'll read them like, oh my, has anybody optioned this? And they're like, no, I don't have any luck. Or they'll say, oh my God, I've gone on the tours of Hollywood and been wooed, and everybody was going to do something. And I'm like, well, let's not do it that way. Let me see if I can find someone who's interested. If we can get this thing up to the next level, forget all that touring stuff. Let's just make something, you know? And they're like, yeah, okay. So I start to obtain rights on handshakes. Like, let's work. And if it makes sense, we keep going. If it doesn't, we don't. And so I've become a producer and I help develop projects and then eventually we'll make an actual project. And I'll be able to say, yeah, not only am I an executive producer, but this is the movie I made, you know, or this is the thing I developed and they bought me out, right? Because now I own a little piece of it. And so that is all happening now. And it blows me away that I get to say on your podcast, I am an executive producer of movies.
That's amazing. I mean, that really is. You mentioned the
Yeah.
opportunities to come with it. And I mean, to be able to go from podcasting to movie producing is
Yeah.
very impressive. And that's just through networking and the experience and
Yeah.
people that you've met and everything else.
And there's no doubt that I'm a producer. And I say executive producer, and I'll tell you why I say that because my friends that are in the movies, and I'm like, I think I can say I'm an executive producer. And all of them say, yeah, Peter, that's exactly what you do. Look, and they took the burden off me. They're like, Pete, you could say that. And but I haven't produced a movie yet. And they're like, it doesn't matter. There's so much work you have to do before you even get to have the chance to develop a movie so that you can maybe make a movie. They're like, you're doing all of those things. We all see it, you know? And so this is the fact is they consider me a producer. And if that's true, then I'm a producer, right? And so I continue to build bridges. I continue to add things onto my thing. And this is how arrogant and confident that I am. I have a project that Christopher Pratt would be great for, and I know how to reach him. And I'm not going to do it until I'm more ready, but I'm not afraid to do it. And I have 100% confidence that he will take the meeting because I've earned it. I've earned that thing by the things that I've done, the network that I've created. I can get in the room with him and say, here's what I'm doing. Here's why I think you're great. Here's what this looks like. And he'll either say yes or no, and it won't. The answer would be great if he said yes, but if he says no, I got another guy that's equally incredible that I can go and put it in front of them. And so that's what my podcast is created for me is the opportunity to go out and pitch Christopher Pratt on a project. How amazing is that?
Very,
Yeah.
very. But you're also, I mean, credit to you because you're not just sitting behind the mic doing the episode and, going to sleep. You're
Yeah.
working the process. You're
Yep.
working the guest. You're working the interaction. You're taking it to another level. You're not just saying goodbye to the guest at the end of the show and then being like, "Well, see you when it's done." Right? I'll send you the link.
Yeah.
Have a good day. You're
Yeah.
really working the contact in order to build that network.
Yeah. 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 I have a lot of return guests. I have some guests that I've had on more time than most people I have episodes in their show, you know. So these people become dear to me. They become friends. And it's amazing to do this. And then when they think of somebody that may know somebody or they have something, guess who they think of? They think of me. And so I get emails all the time. Hey, Pete, this is going to come out of left field, right? I Rory, this all the time. So the other day I get this message and it's like, hey, Pete, this is going to come out of left field. And I'm comfortable playing left field. And it's fine for me. And so they say some words that I can't talk about, but they say some words that involve basically high-end weapons and sales to America from a foreign country. And I'm like, huh, yeah, I know someone for that. Hang on. And so we've already had several meetings. Maybe nothing comes of it. But this is the kind of thing that if something comes, and look, by the way, this is all legitimate. There's no illegal stuff here, but that's the kind of thing that shows up on my desk because of this crazy mix. Like where I tell you that, hey, I can get a meeting with Chris Pratt, I believe, right? Haven't had it yet, but I've certainly had people like him. Um, I'm going to go do a show, and it won't be the first time in with a lady named Ruta Lee, and she's a Hollywood person, and she's is an icon, right? But a lot of people don't know her anymore. But if you're from a certain age, you would know who Ruta Lee was. She lives. in a house that was Orson Welles' primary residence.
Oh, no kidding.
So yeah, I mean the Hollywood Hills, right? And so it's this mansion, and it's an older mansion, but it's a mansion and it's full of beautiful things. And I'm going to talk to her, and she's going to be desperate to hear from me because she's a wonderful person, and we vibe in a really great way. And I have something I'm going to throw at her. I'm going to have something that's pitchable. I'm not pitching all the time like, "Hey, listen, here's my angle," but I'm like, "Hey, do you want to hear about this? Hey, do you have any interest in this?" And I always think it's okay to say no because I just think this is good for you. But if it's not, great, we'll do something else. And almost inevitably, they're like, no, of course, Pete, I always want to hear your ideas. And so then I'll throw them my idea, and they're like, I can't do that. Or they'll say, let's see what happens. Call me. And maybe that's their way of saying no. That's fine. But I do the next step. I call, I send the notes. And these are the things that add time in. It's just that care for the guest, that care for your show, and being a little less worried about these small things that don't matter, like how many people watch. None of that matters. What matters is how you make value with your show for people. And if I can link Ruta with this organization that I want to try to link her to, even if Ruta isn't the connection, she may say, it's not me that you want to talk to. What you want to talk to is Stephanie Powers. And then I'll say this to her. Oh, I know Stephanie Powers. And for anybody who doesn't know Stephanie Powers, Stephanie Powers was a huge actress in the 70s and 80s, always all over the place, still gorgeous, still wonderful. But if she said, yeah, Stephanie Powers, I know Stephanie, I'll call her right now. And I'm like, all right, great. And so she'll come back, hey, Pete wants to talk to you. She'll be like, I know Pete. And so these are the things that happen when you work on investing in your show, the value that comes out of it. And I just described an impossible scenario for anybody to write down in their business plan when they start a podcast, right? But this scenario could absolutely happen. Has this scenario happened? No, it hasn't happened in this exact case. But it absolutely, next week when I'm sitting in front of Ruta Lee and I talk to her, she's going to tell me something that's valuable. I already know the future because I've seen this so many times where people who want to do things want to do things. And this place, I'll say the name of the place. It's called George Mark, and it is a hospice center for kids with palliative care. And they give respite care to the families who've been taking care of this kid. It's like, hey, go out on a date, have your kids stay here tonight. They're going to be safe. Whatever it is, right? Walking your kids to end of life hospice type stuff. This is an amazing place. And it's not negative there. Yes, there's tears all the time, but there's celebrities that love this idea and they just don't know about it yet. It's like we were talking earlier about you could be the most famous person in your field, hand surgeon, and nobody knows who you are. Well,
Right.
this incredible place is the first one in the nation ever. Now there's more of them because people realize kids get sick, families need help. They have to go to hospice. You have to specialize in infants that are going to pass away. Someone has to do that work, and the folks at George Mark House do that, right? And so when I talk to Ruta Lee about that, she's going to have some advice on how I can get help, and she may have a lot of help because that's the kind of lady she is.
Wow. All right, man. Let me fit in my corny question here because I think it's a great time.
Oh yeah, 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 sure.
I think
Sorry, I've been talking a lot.
you're doing great, man. Honestly, if I don't know it was going to be this easy, I would have brought a sandwich. It's all good.
Seriously.
So,
Yeah.
all right, corny question is simple, and I think I have a pretty good idea what the first part, the answer is going to be, but we're going to go anyway. When it comes to doing your podcast, what is it about doing your podcast that you love the most? And what is it about doing your podcast that you just absolutely cannot stand the most?
Mm. Yeah. So the thing I love the most is the interaction with the person that I'm going to meet. And because I get to interview people that I'm fascinated by, I just, it's easy. It's
Yeah.
easy. I talked about energy policy, and I love energy policy. It's a fantastic thing to think about. How do we get better at using the energy that we have? How do we, do all these things? And this guy's UC Berkeley, so he's super smart. Oh my God, I had my mind blown, right? It's incredible. So that's the thing. It's the guests. They're everything. And I'd be nothing without these guys. The thing that I like the least are the things that I don't do anymore. I just don't do them. I don't worry about TikTok. I don't need more channels. I don't need more work that everybody tells me I'm supposed to do that does nothing for my show. I'll tell you a thing that I don't do anymore. On my show's primarily on YouTube. That's the main place I want people to go, right? I don't ever type in a keyword. Don't do it. You know why? It doesn't do anything. So I can spend hours and I go, oh, you got to research and you got to be diligent and you got to find the right keywords. No thanks. No thanks. All that time to have no result. Nah, it's not about me. It's not about my machine. It's about how that machine works with me. And I don't control that machine. So I no longer care about that. So I've tried, and this is a guy who's tried everything. I've spent money. I've bought PR. I've done all these things. And some things kind of help. But when I turn off that capacity,
Mhm.
and nothing changes, I'm like, oh, I actually don't need to spend $25 a month on this thing that's going to do this thing for me. And so the things that I don't like, I just don't do. Doesn't mean I don't invest in my show and I try things that like, okay, maybe this works again, and I'll go through the whole process and whatever it is. But when someone tells me they need to help me with my workflow, I already am not listening to them because they don't know my workflow. And a lot of these workflow things like AI and everything, it doesn't, but you're giving me, I didn't have that work before. Why am I doing this work instead of the work I was doing? You're telling me it's going to make a difference. Why? Because I write every one of my emails. I'll write it out myself. Every time I might write the same letters over and over again, but I'm the one that does it. So when you ask me like, what do I not like doing? I don't do those things.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's absolutely great. Okay, I'm sorry for laughing.
No,
I
I think
usually
it's hilarious too.
every once in a while I ask a question about AI. I think
I'm
maybe
not
I'll.
against AI. It's just not helpful to me in a way
That's
that
what I
I
mean.
understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. It almost seems like the way it's evolved that it's more work to
Yeah.
use it than if
Right.
you just did it yourself.
And it's not work that I even need to do now, you
Yeah,
know? So like, oh, it'll write your summary for you. Like, will it? I mean, 100 words, 100 words. I type those out so fast. I'll be done. Sometimes I don't even type much of a summary because I don't care. It's not
right.
that important. It's in there. All I need to do is put a name together, and who knows what the name is going to be. Like they change that stuff all the time. So if it's Pete and Rory talk about podcasting is the podcast name. Okay, great. Done. Didn't need anybody to tell me that. I just wrote it down. Well, that doesn't rank very high. I don't care. It doesn't matter because I don't rate for my own name on YouTube a lot of times. Oh, well, you don't rate very high for your own name. Like I write Pete A. Turner. Nobody in the history of the world has written the word Pete A. Turner more than me. I write that the most, and I don't rank for my own name. No, come on. That's not me. That's y'all. And so
Right.
I'm not going to worry about that anymore. And so I don't. It may be precious to somebody else, and maybe they have to learn that lesson in their own way, and maybe they'll crack the code. Good. I hope that works for them. I am not going to do that tedious stuff because I don't believe it helps. But I will write a handwritten letter.
There you go.
So I have my own tedious things that I do, but I just don't do those things. I don't find value in them. And I'm looking to pack value into my show. And me putting down keywords or curating playlists that no one listens to. Why? Why? I'm not doing it.
Yeah. I love the answer. I love the old school approach. It's I kind of feel the same way on a lot of these things.
Yeah.
I also think that, AI is one of those things that's sort of here and it's like the shiny new toy and that's great.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to move past it like we do everything
Can I
else.
tell you another
So
example?
yeah,
This,
please.
okay, so I'll put shorts up because shorts work. Today, shorts work. And whenever you watch this thing, who knows? But and they get you followers on YouTube. I don't know what that means, but it works. So I do them, right? Here's what I do. I go on to StreamYard, not a plug, just I use StreamYard. And then when the show is over, you can tell the robot burp, generate shorts. And so it does. I don't watch them, not 1 second. I just put publish. I don't care what it says. I just publish it. I push the button for YouTube, for my other YouTube channel, for Facebook, like that. And then I press play. And I don't, and my friends be like, oh, I saw that thing, that short you put up. Great. I
I
don't
didn't.
care. Yeah, I don't check them. I don't care because none of it matters. Because if I spend, this is what everybody, I want you guys to hear this. If I spend 5 minutes trying to make a more perfect short, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not going to make it spin more. Nobody cares if it ends in the mid sentence because most everybody doesn't watch to the end anyhow. And so they watch it for 30 seconds or whatever it is, right? And it's a minute long thing and they don't watch the whole thing. So you do this to get exposure and to be seen. But I have figured out that none of it matters. And if it's really crappy at it, I don't care. Let the AI be crappy at the edit. All I've done is I've done the short thing. I have not wasted any more time. So I appreciate the fact that it's done and out the door, and I move on to the next thing. And I try to spend as little time doing that as possible. I probably put out, when I'm doing it well, I'll probably put out 15 shorts in a day. because I've got a lot of shorts. But if I don't, I don't care. So my show will kind of up and down with how many people see it on those days that I don't put shorts out. And that's fine because I can still put them out. I have tons of content. I'm just not that precious about it. So this is the things I don't do the things that don't add value to my show.
It's a great answer. That's a great answer. And I love that, after all this time you're talking about, hey, this just doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. And you're
Right.
breaking down a lot of myths right now. I think there might be some podcasters out here crying who are listening to the program right now because their whole
They
life
should do what's best for them, right?
revolves
But
around this
don't be
stuff.
afraid to turn that machine off. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you this though,
Yeah.
because after 10 years and all these episodes, you definitely know what doesn't matter. So for the
Right.
podcasters out there right now who are listening, trying to get some kind of nugget out of this, after all the time that you've been doing this, what does matter?
Showing up, doing the work. Whatever the work is, you've got to figure out what the work is, right? You've got to figure out like, are these keywords important? Well, all right, then do it. I had to figure that out by doing it a lot and be like, why am I doing this? It makes no difference. So you have to be able to outwork your problems until you develop elegance and you trim all the branches off your tree, and your little bonsai tree is a stick because you pruned all the stuff off that you don't need. And you realize I make sticks and they're awesome. And when you know that, when you know what that is, that's going to be different for everybody because there's all kinds of ways to do a show. When you know that and you know what the work is, figure out, okay, so don't figure out what the work is going to be. Figure out what the work is. What is today, right now, the thing you need to do to feed your show energy because it needs you. It's a baby. And until it becomes a crazy teenager that drives you nuts and you want to strangle it, you work on baby skills. And so you just stay constantly feeding it, trying to nurse it along until it becomes something that demands more of your attention. And if it doesn't demand your attention, then you stop doing it. Whatever that thing is, even if it's the whole show. If you feed that thing attention until you don't need to feed it attention anymore. And then if it stands up and it can walk on its own, if it can produce value for you in some way, whether it's money or connections or whatever it is, then you've got something that you should invest your time and money into even more so because now it's got its own life. Like I said, my show is different than me. We're separate entities. So my show does what it's supposed to do for me. It connects me to people, it creates opportunities, and that's the thing it's best at. Does it create money? Sure, but it's not a great money machine. That's what you have to figure out. Is what is the immediate next thing you need to do? And can you continue to do that thing until you sort that problem out? And it's either so ingrained in what you do that you don't even think about it or think about its work anymore, or you figure out how to offshore it, or until all of a sudden you're up to the next problem. And there's all these dragons in the podcast world that you have to slay. There's no way around that. So when someone says to you, I want a podcast, I want to monetize my, or they say to me, I want a podcast and I want to monetize it right away. And I'm like, all right, well, have you listened to yourself, do your show? No, I hate my voice. I'm like, well, then why is anybody else going to listen? If you don't find it valuable to listen to you and improve
Yeah.
your stuff, then then that's a skill you need to develop. Is you need to get over yourself because you don't suck that bad. And if you do, well, if you suck that bad, you have to work on fixing that so you can monetize. And if you can't do that work, then you either decide to do something else or get to listening, to what you do. And that's just all of it. Everybody's going to get better. So if you suck right now, are you going to suck in 10 episodes? Probably suck less. But if you spend time understanding why you suck and where you suck and what you need to improve, you don't hear me umming and ahhing very much. Those things, and you got a great voice. When your voice can be down in your chest down here,
Thanks.
like right here, and I'm not excited up here. When you understand and you can hear that as you're talking, that is a skill that's developed. So you have to develop these things. That's where the work is immediately for most people right now, where they're at is how do you feed the show the energy it needs every day?
Nice. I mean, very practical, very practical. And honestly, you may have answered our last question
Oh,
with some of that,
nice.
but you got a lot more. So I'm going back to the well again.
Please.
The As we kind of just for the sake of time, I could talk to you forever, brother. I mean, really
Oh,
and truly, you're
likewise. I
absolute.
haven't even let you talk.
It's like I said, it's your show, man. I love it.
Yeah.
As we kind of bring things together, though, I really like to ask this question, especially of folks who have been around as long as you have and done what you've done,
Okay.
and that is, what's your best piece of advice for podcasters that are out there who are not quite where you are yet,
Yeah,
You've given a lot. So, I mean,
right.
anything else that you feel like throwing out there in terms of, that advice for podcasters, because we have a lot of folks listening right now who are just hanging on your every word, and I want to give them as
Yeah.
much as we can. You know what I mean? So,
So we talked about figuring out where the work is right now today. That's huge. Figure out what that is for you. And you don't have to do all of the work. So if this thing takes over your life, you're going to burn out. So you have to figure out what your pace is going to be. And so if your show is a little less perfect because you can't do that next thing, you don't write that. Look, I'm not saying everybody needs to write a handwritten letter. I don't do it as often as I'm supposed to, but I probably do it more than most people, right? So could I spend more time working on that? Sure. Is that what my work is though? No, no, no. My work is before that. It's something else in the show that I need to deal with, whatever it is. And sometimes it's managing my personal relationship. We have a space out behind our house in the trailer that I can use now. That was occupied for years by one of the kids in the family. But now I can go out there and I'm less in my family's way when I do my show because it's loud and obnoxious. And my special someone's like, get out of the house, go rent something. And I'm like, I'm not going to rent something. Like it's so much money just for this, right? Like there's not enough value there for me. So figure out where your value is, and might be something that surprises you on where it is. That for sure is great advice. And the other thing is as you talk to people, they're desperate to help you, right? And so if you're so figure out how to fill your plate, right? And that can be everything. That's work-life balance. That's all of it. And then know when your plate is full so that you can say, "Oh, sorry, I can't do that. My plate is full." Or if you want to buy some capacity, you have to give me money and I'll take these potatoes off and I'll put your stuff on and I'll do that instead of what I want to do. So understanding how to fill your plate and when it's full and where the value is in allocating your resources is huge. And then understand this, if you are trying to do something, you talk to someone, they're going to want you to do something else, or they're going to have a great idea. Even if they're not a podcaster, they'll tell you what you need to do. I would stop them, not waste your time, don't waste their time, and say something like, "Hey, Rory, I appreciate you giving me some advice. Here's the best way to help me. You go to my PayPal link and you put in $5 a month. That's all. You can put in 20 if you want, but that's what you do. Otherwise, my plate is full. I don't need to do anything else. Yes, I would love to travel around the nation and do a bunch of all these things you want me to, whatever that thing is they want you to do. I'd love to do that. I don't have the capacity for that. The only way I can get capacity for that is if people like you put $5 in my pocket each month. And if you don't want to, that's fine. Don't worry about it. But my plate's full. And when you learn to be able to say stuff like that, they may or may not give you money, but what matters is that you're understanding what's about. Hey, you want to hear my podcast idea? No, no, I don't. I don't want to hear the podcast name. I mean, I'm sure it's clever and everything. Everybody's clever. Can you show up? Can you do the job? I will help you. But you have to be ahead of me because if it comes down to production, I'm never going to fail you. I know how to produce a show. Do you know how to show up? And that's a question I ask everybody. Do you know how to show up? Do you know how to do the work? Are you going to outwork me? Because if you are, I'm never going to fail you and you will produce shows. But that costs you this much a month. I'm not trying to break the bank, but it's going to cost you whatever it is, $500 a month, whatever it is. And I'll give you 5 hours of my time, whatever that's going to be, right? And all of a sudden, people get crystal clear on whether or not they want to work with you on something or whether or not they want to give you, don't bother giving Pete advice. He told me to shut up. Well, you know what? I don't need to hear it. And I'm glad to have a conversation. Let's just not have that conversation. And
Right.
I've just pushed all that stuff out of the way because it's not valuable to me. That person is valuable to me, but I don't want to hear their kooky podcast idea. And look, unless we're just in fantasy land. If you're in fantasy land, who cares, right? But I'm talking about business land. And knowing when your plate is full is going to be huge for anybody who's podcasting.
That's fantastic advice, man. All of it. I
Thanks.
love it. So I hope everybody's out there. I hope you folks are out there writing this stuff down. I really do. And if you're not, just replay the episode, right? A couple more downloads. It's not going to hurt my feelings. Just keep doing what you got to do. So that's wonderful. Pete, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you, man, and just learning everything about what you've done and where you came from and so on. I'm sure that I could keep talking to you forever, but I probably need to wrap this up. Thank you for coming on
Thank
here,
you.
and
Yeah.
doing everything you did. And I just absolutely know that there's podcasters out there right now who got a ton out of this episode. And honestly, that's why we do this. So thank you, man.
Yeah. Well, when I saw what your show was about, anytime I can talk to folks about podcasting, because there wasn't someone like me. I mean, Adam Carolla did a thing, and he he doesn't know he doesn't do all the work, right? He's Adam Carolla. His job is to be talent, and so you got a talent guy trying to tell you how to build a show, but he can't. He doesn't know how to break a show out. People come to him who are already famous who want shows and they sell ads. This is not to talk down about it. Adam Carolla's a great guy. I've talked to him a bunch of times. But he doesn't know this side of the work. And when I went to him in podcast one and I said, I can help you, they weren't about it. And I'm like, oh, I get it. I get it. It's by selling ads. And I'm not valuable to them in that way. It's not a hurt, it's a business thing. They're not in that business. They're not in the business. They want people to show up with however many listeners. They want them to show up who are already famous. And so if you're going to work with them, you've got to hit a certain mark. And matter of fact, if you look in their marketing department, those marks are on the wall. And you're like, my show doesn't do that. But that person can smile and 100 people will show up in a bookstore just because they're there. And I'm saying 100, 1,000, however many people are going to show
Right.
up. I can't make 100 people show up in a bookstore, right? Like that's a different kind of world that I'm in. And so when all of these things happen, understand that the best way for you to figure this out is to talk to someone who does it for a living every single day, actually does all of the job, wears all of the hats, or has wore all the hats. And so you can decide which hats you need to put on, which hats you need to sell, which hats you need to hire someone to wear for you. And look, you don't need to spend that much money. Just see if you like this stuff first. Get to 100 episodes and see if you still love it. And if you don't, it's all right. It's all right.
Right on. Uh, again,
Keep going, man. I'm sorry. I
I
can't
love
shut
it,
up.
dude. It's fantastic. It really is. I mean, every time we break, I get another awesome nugget for everybody else. So it's really awesome. Pete Turner, host of Break It Down show and everything else. Pete, you're amazing, man. It's been an honor having you on the show today. Thank you for coming on.
Been my honor. Thank you. I
You
appreciate you
got it.
very much.
You got it. Folks, that's been another fantastic episode of The Podcaster Nation. The reason we get these fantastic podcasters on here is because this is the podcast that is about podcasters, for podcasters, and done by podcasters. And if we haven't shown it before, we certainly showed it today. This is the place where the rising tide truly raises all ships. So keep sailing.